Hello everybody and welcome back to another video. Today I'm going to be doing the coffee book tag. Now, I'm pretty much a well-known coffee addict to most of my friends, though I've actually slowed down on it recently, which is almost terrifying. Anyway, it's the coffee book tag, and I'm like, coffee and books. It's literally perfection. Absolute perfection. So let's get in with those questions. Black. AKA my favorite way to drink coffee. I know, that may seem weird to people, but I love black coffee. Name a series that's tough to get into but has hardcore fans. For this, I chose the Song of Ice and Fire series by George R.R. Martin, so the first book being A Game of Thrones. I think this series is really hard for people to get into because these books are so dense, and if you're not used to working with multiple point of view characters and multiple narrators, you can find that difficult, and they're not exactly super fast-paced books. So they can be very hard for people to get into, especially I think people who watch the show and then just think, oh, I'll go read the book. It can be pretty jarring with how dense these books are. Now, I love dense books, so I don't have a problem with that, but the fan base for A Song of Ice and Fire, the book series, is intensely hardcore. They're some of the most dedicated and usually very intelligent fans I've ever had contact with. I mean, these people dive into these books so much, and I love that. I think that's really cool. The only other fan base I've seen be that dedicated is probably the Harry Potter fan base, but Harry Potter's not that hard to get into versus these books, which are very hard for most people to get into. Peppermint Mocha, aka the one drink I will usually treat myself with during the winter time. Name a book that gets more popular during the winter or a festive time of year. I think one of the most obvious answers for this would be A Christmas Carol by Charles Dickens, but I don't ever really read A Christmas Carol. You know, I've read it a couple times, I don't need to read it again. But I think more recently, a good one to choose is My True Love Gave to Me, which is a collection of holiday short stories edited by Stephanie Perkins featuring 12 different YA authors. I mean, obviously this is all taking place around Christmas and New Year's, so of course it's going to be more popular during a festive time of year. And, you know, you're going to find stories that you do like and some that you don't, so you can always go back and read some of your favorites. And I really enjoyed this collection. I thought it was really a diverse and well-written collection. Hot chocolate. I will admit, I don't really like hot chocolate. I know that's probably like a sin, but just not quite my thing. What is your favorite children's book? Next, I mean, I don't think I need to say anything about this. Double shot of espresso, aka my other favorite way to have any form of caffeine, since espresso is technically not coffee. Name a book that kept you on the edge of your seat from start to finish. This is a pretty tough one because books don't often keep me on the edge of my seat from start to finish. You know, there'll be a build and then I'll be on the edge of my seat, but Golden Sun by Pierce Brown pretty much kept me on the edge of my seat for the whole of the book. This is the sequel to Red Rising, so I won't say anything about stuff that happens because obviously there'll be huge spoilers, but this book kicks it up 12 notches, and I remember reading the arc and just sitting there just sort of wide-eyed and flipping through pages so quickly because I was so into it and I was racing. And then of course I couldn't tell anybody about it because the book wasn't out for another like month and a half, 2 months, so I was just like, oh my god, guys. But yes, this book, edge of my seat. Whole time. Starbucks. Name a book you see everywhere. Now that could be a whole lot of things. There's some bestsellers, which I mean you'll always see, but one that I definitely see in every bookstore, every airport, you know, no matter where I go, I always see a copy of The Girl with the Dragon Tattoo by Stieg Larsson, ever since it hit really big in the US, and this is one that I actually really enjoy too, so that's probably why I notice it. But yeah, you're guaranteed to always find a copy of The Girl with the Dragon Tattoo by Stieg Larsson, you know, just like anywhere. Airport, bookshop, don't care, it's gonna be there. That hipster coffee shop. Give a book by an indie author a shout out. Okay, I'm not really sure if this counts, but this is pretty much, I think, the closest I can get. This is The Paper Magician by Charlie N. Holmberg. I'm pretty certain this is just done by Amazon Publishing, so it's really hard to get in print. You can often only find it as a digital book. And I guess this is an indie author? I'm not sure. If I'm wrong, please feel free to correct me. I don't really know what constitutes an indie author, and I feel very ignorant on that account. But this book is the first book in a trilogy. This is The Paper Magician. The Glass Magician is the sequel, and the third one, I think it's gonna be called The Master Magician? I can't remember. But this is a really sweet book, which I enjoyed immensely. I got it through the Kindle First program, so I think I spent like $1 on it, and then like, you know, got the narration for like $1, and I really enjoyed it. It was sweet, it was fast-paced, it had an interesting world and magic system, and yeah, I mean, if you guys haven't read this, it's a sweet, charming series, and you come to like the characters. The main character here on the cover is Sione, and I love also Magician Thane, who's her kind of like teacher, tutor kind of thing. It's a really cute book. Definitely at least look it up. Oops, I accidentally got decaf. literally the most terrifying thing that can happen to any coffee lover. Name a book you were expecting more from. I don't think I need to say too much about this either. I've expressed my disappointment and discontent with Shades of Earth by Beth Revis, the third book in the Across the Universe trilogy, several times. Just quick recap, I thought it completely tripped its ending. I really didn't enjoy the last, 10 pages at all. I was really pissed off at them, really. And for the whole book, I was just kind of like, what are we doing? Like, what are we doing? Like, I was willing to roll with it. And then the last, 5 to 10 pages, I went, nope, that's it. I'm really angry now, and that was terrible. I hate that ending. So, yeah, I was expecting more from this because I really enjoyed the first 2 books, but not so much the third one. Finally, the perfect blend. Name a book or series that was both bitter and sweet and ultimately satisfying. There are tons of books I could pick for this. I tend to read a lot of very bittersweet series because oftentimes, weirdly enough, bittersweet is the way to go. It's a very good way to wrap up things. But if I had to pick one, which I think was one of my first instances of really encountering something so bittersweet, it's the His Dark Materials trilogy by Philip Pullman. All 3 of these books are bittersweet. Northern Lights leaves off on an incredibly bittersweet cliffhanger. The Subtle Knife leaves off on an incredibly bittersweet cliffhanger. And the final novel, The Amber Spyglass, has a ridiculously bittersweet ending. Thankfully also not a cliffhanger, but it's very bittersweet. So this whole series was always very bittersweet. And yet when I finished The Amber Spyglass, as kind of sad as I was about some of the things that happened, I went, there's no other way to end this. Yeah, this all makes sense with everything that Philip Pullman was setting up in this trilogy. It's like, sorry, there's a massive bee hanging out outside my window and it's starting to freak me out. Okay, it's gone. Did I ever mention I'm phobic of bees? So when I see a hornet the size of my thumb hanging out, I freak out. But that's it for me today, you guys, and so until next time, cheers.